Welcome to Ambassador Alaina Teplitz, who has served as the U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka and the Maldives since 2018. As a career member of the U.S. Senior Foreign Service with the rank of Career Minister, congratulations, you have served as a leader in many exciting yet challenging countries, and we are all grateful. What is your vision for Sri Lanka and the Maldives, especially as it relates to inclusive prosperity and stability?
I think it's really important to understand that Sri Lanka and Maldives have visions also for themselves. And that's got to fit into this global vision, particularly one that's being revised post pandemic or as we approach the end of the pandemic. And that vision is definitely one where prosperity needs to be jump started. And the United States is on board with that. We've been supporting in both countries economic activity and inclusive growth for many, many years. A key to unlocking that growth is to make sure that it is as inclusive as possible. And we talk about all the various groups that really end up being marginalized from the mainline economy, whether it ends up being sometimes it's ethnic minorities, but it's almost always women. And female workforce participation in Sri Lanka is at about 30 to 35%. Maldives a little higher, 40, 42%. But if you figure women are half the population, they're clearly missing out just on having women participate in the formal economy. I would argue too that as small business owners and sort of drivers of innovation are finding good places in the economy, sort of serving unmet needs. In addition, that women as business entrepreneurs are really a neglected portion of that prosperity equation. So my vision is one at which the U.S. can help both Sri Lanka and Maldives catalyze economic growth by making sure that there are opportunities for women in particular, but small businesses and entrepreneurs in general, but women in particular, to really participate, to get on a level playing field, to have access to finance, to have access to the skills, the training, what is needed, but also the networking that's going to be necessary for them to succeed.
Wow, Ambassador, it's a great vision. You're a true champion for women's empowerment through economic inclusion. And the U.S. Department of State and WeConnect International hosted a supplier diversity and inclusion roundtable last week that you were featured in to launch a new ecosystem report on women-owned businesses and their access to markets in Sri Lanka, the Maldives, Bangladesh, and India. So, what do you hope the research can catalyze for local women business owners?
Well, I think it's important as we look at the challenges that women in particular face to identify those barriers very clearly. And there are different barriers in Sri Lanka and Maldives, and just sort of taking Sri Lanka as maybe the example. Some of these barriers are very hard to overcome. And so developing strategies to address them is going to be key. It isn't as simple as just saying, well, we'll put more money out there so that women can get loans maybe to start a business, or we'll run a few training seminars. A lot of the barriers, particularly in Sri Lanka, are sociocultural. And they relate to perceptions of women in the workplace and what work women should do, and even how long they should participate in the workforce. So I think that until some of those barriers that relate a lot to unconscious bias, that relate a lot to sort of self-imposed norms, have a sustainable path to shift them, right? There's a plan and a strategy to shift them. It's going to be really difficult for women to push ahead at the rate, we'd like to see. Even in Maldives, just thinking about the occupations that women are in, they're kind of traditional occupations for women. It's, handicraft, it's teaching, it's food processing, it's housekeeping, it's that kind of work. It's shifting people's mindset about what women can and should be doing, and making sure that girls and women, as they're receiving education and training, have opportunities to choose the profession, the career of their choice. And at the end of the day, removing these barriers has to be about shifting the unconscious, but also maybe the conscious bias that exists. And so legal frameworks also have to be a part of the discussion, and that has to be an important part of the strategy. How do we tackle this unconscious thing, but how do we then deal with the legal frameworks that promote these sort of implicit or inherent sociocultural biases?
Wow, that's really helpful background information. And according to our WeConnect International Regional Director for South Asia, Aroshan Agaretnam, while gender inclusive sourcing is new to most buyers in Sri Lanka and the Maldives, the majority of corporate buyers we interviewed for the report said that it's actually a concept they want to learn more about. So, what do you think corporations should seek to buy? Why do you think they should seek to buy more from women-owned businesses? And what role do you think organizations such as WeConnect International should play to encourage gender inclusive sourcing in Sri Lanka and the Maldives?
So it's actually really encouraging that the response to WeConnect survey indicated that companies are interested in thinking about policies that would help boost female-owned or female-headed businesses. I think that's part of the solution. And mentioned earlier, needing to change legal frameworks, but there can be conscious choices about wanting to grow supplier networks that branch into non-traditional spaces or are headed by sort of non-traditional leaders. Hopefully one day we won't even have to make that distinction between what is traditional and what isn't. It's just going to be the norm, that we have a lot of diversity out there. I think WeConnect can help expose businesses to these concepts, help provide template policies, help build the networks that are going to be needed to connect female-headed businesses to that supply chain. I mean, that's often the missing link, is women are excluded from these networks that are yielding the contract, right? The business, the buy, the supply. I suspect also that one of the challenges is going to be, and WeConnect International and others certainly can help this, is also helping female-headed businesses be able to generate the supply necessary to meet the demand of large corporate buyers. I think that's often a challenge for small businesses in general, is they want to get started, they make a connection, they're producing a good that somebody really is eager to have, but it might be a little too artisanal, or they just can't produce in the volume with the sort of steadiness and sustainability that larger buyers are going to need. And I think that might be true for an export market as well. And if women-headed businesses are going to break out of kind of a niche sort of fair trade handicraft kind of space, and there's nothing wrong with that space, it's good, and there's a market for that. But to branch into larger business opportunities, you've got to have that scale that is often missing. And that's where other things can come into play and be boosters, like access to finance or mentoring and building business plans. Those things can be really helpful. And I think maybe building on some of the interest revealed by your survey, maybe even some of the larger companies can do some mentoring with women-owned businesses to help them get to the level where they are producing, peer businesses, and they can get more connected to networks. So I think that's definitely something that WeConnect can be encouraging, and that we all need to be looking at, and something the U.S. government also looks at through many of its other programs.
Wow. Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing your wisdom and your clear passion for inclusion. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I want to come back to this idea that, it's our organizations and our organizational cultures, our national cultures, that are really going to make the difference. Globally, through the Sustainable Development Goals, nations around the world have committed to making sure that gender disparities are eliminated. They've committed to ending poverty. They've committed to making sure that people prosper, and that they do so in equitable and inclusive ways. And the United States is absolutely committed to that vision. And I know people in Sri Lanka and Maldives are committed as well. But we're going to get there by changing the way we approach the problem set. The United States firmly believes that small businesses are the drivers of economic development and growth. Frankly, but it's got to be an inclusive equation. As we said at the top of our conversation, if women are excluded from this, you're just missing out. Countries are missing out. Communities are missing out, as well as individuals, on half the productive potential, of a given society. And so really getting people to the point of an honest discussion about their biases, sociocultural norms. Are these things that as a society maybe we want to leave behind or we need to rethink in order to prosper in the 21st century? Not that places have to, shed their identity, but perhaps think a little differently about how people can make contributions to their economy. These are things I think have to be really encouraged, and that can translate into, organizational change and more inclusion at that level. It's definitely something I would like to see, and of course, I've been honored over time to be part of various efforts, including the current one, to help make this a reality. And I think we're getting there one step at a time. WeConnect is an important part of that process. And so, we look forward to the results of the work that you've undertaken.
Ambassador, thank you again. I am so grateful that we have you as a leader in the world. The world is a better place. And so thank you for taking your time, for sharing what you know about the potential. And I look forward to our work together going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks and good luck.
Thank you.